everyone, my name is Lance, and this is Amped About Aimpad. So there's been a kind of a surge of interest in analog gaming keyboards, and so I've been noticing a lot of comments and people's feedback and impressions of what they think analog gaming keyboard keys would be like. And there's some misconceptions, I think, that I'd like to kind of readdress. So the first of those is that analog gaming keyboards aren't going to be supported by any games. I mean, that's the concept, or the thought is, and truly that's not the case. I've been working on this for several years, and over those years have been testing literally hundreds of games for my Steam library. Right now, I'm up to about 400 games that I've tested, and of those 400 games, about half of them work without doing anything at all. They just natively work in the game, simply because the keyboard looks like an Xbox controller. So if the game supports an Xbox controller, it's going to work. So the fundamental thing is, I'm going to run a list of all the games that I've tested at this point that have been supported, and you'll kind of see them running through here. And there's a lot of them. Literally, there's over 200 games that I've tested personally that I know will work with this, and I'm sure there's hundreds of more that do work. And that also includes the ability to not only have analog movement with the WASD keys, but also use the mouse for precision aiming. There literally is hundreds of them, and the reason for that is because the game engines themselves support that ability, because they're pulling for both the keyboard and the mouse and the Xbox controller all at the same time. And several of third-party game engines support this ability, such as the Unity engine, the Unreal engine, there's the Source engine, the Cry engine, the Real Virtuality engine, which runs Arma, the Frostbite engine for Battlefield, the id Tech engine for Doom and all those other games produced by id, and the Lithtech engine for Monolith games. There's tons of games. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some games that don't work. And there are some popular games, such as the Assassin's Creed series doesn't work, the Skyrim series, Morrowind series, things like that don't work, Fallout as well. So there are some popular games out there that don't work with it. But really, it's not that difficult, since all those other game engines do support it. The game could be patched to support it. It just would require some either modifying by the modders or the developers themselves making the changes. But there seriously is a lot of game support for this already, and that's one of the reasons why this type of technology is now possible and it makes sense to be implemented in the market today. So there's another concept that people have is, I just can't get used to the ability to finely adjust my fingers to be able to control the game characters smoothly. And people might, I'm just throwing this out there, but I think they're overthinking it. It's not that hard. It's not that complicated. So to kind of demonstrate that, I've decided to have this tool that many people are familiar with. It's just a normal hand drill. And the concept of a hand drill is, on normal keyboards, the way that it works is you're either not drilling or you push it down and you're drilling full speed, right? And that's the way the keyboard works. Can you use a drill like that? Yeah, sure, that's fine. It's functional. But if you're going to be screwing in a screw like that, you have to screw it in and then time the release of when you're going to stop screwing that in. So there's variable speed screwdrivers, just like this one, where if I push in just a small amount, you'll notice that it spins just a small amount, and it goes faster and faster and faster and faster until it's going all the way. It's the exact same way that these keys work, in that there's most of the time you'll probably just be pushing the key in down all the way. That's just the nature of games, is that you're going to be running full speed. But the times that you need it, you want to slow down when you're going around to a corner, or when you're sneaking up on somebody, or when you're trying to ease your movement or matching your speed with somebody else. And the thought here is the same thing with the screwdriver. So if you're screwing in really fast with a screw, but you want to slow it down, and just before you are going to stop the screw from going in all the way into the wood, you want to stop it at the perfect level. It's not all the time that you're running or pushing it. There's times that you want to use it and times that you don't, but it's always underneath that same key. And that's just kind of an interesting, I guess, parallel, that it's not that hard of a concept to think about, and it's not like, oh, I can't imagine myself pushing down a key 50% of the way. It doesn't matter. I mean, you don't have to push the thumbstick in 50% of the way ever either. It's just it's not necessary, because there's multiple concepts that are going on when you're using an analog keyboard, and there's multiple methods of feedback that you get. So one of those is when you're pushing down a key, there's two things that are happening. One is you're pushing down the key, and so there's a distance that's happening. That at the very top of the key press, the very bottom of the key press, there's a distance that your fingers have a sense of kind of roughly where your finger is at. At the same time, there's a spring in there that's being compressed when you push it down, and that pressure amount increases the more that you push it down as well. So there's two tactile senses that you have to rely upon on how to position your fingers. The other one is the most important one, is that's visually what's happening on the screen. You can tell what's happening. If you push down your finger a little bit and you're not going fast enough, you just push it down a little bit more to go faster. And if you're going too fast, you release it a little bit and you're not going as fast as you want to. So it's a constant feedback loop of using those three pieces of information to finally control exactly how you want to play the game. And so don't think about it as like it's just too complex. I'm never going to be able to do that. You do it all the time, even with an Xbox controller. The exact same thing's going to happen with your keyboard as well. The next thing that I'd like to identify is people have expressed concerns that so we're using a infrared light of an LED and a photo transistor to detect that light. So I've kind of taken off the keys here, so you can kind of have a little better view, I guess. But basically what's happening is people are thinking, all right, well, so there's this light that has to happen. Well, what happens if a piece of dust gets inside there and screws everything up? It's the end of the world, right? No, it's not, because the one thing I want to point out is that these switches are mounted in a big ol' metal plate, right? So there's a massive metal plate in here that's preventing all sorts of stuff from happening or entering into this. The switch itself is mounted on top of that metal piece through the bottom, and the possibility of dust getting in there, not that great, but even if it doesn't, there's another layer of the PCB or the printed circuit board where the sensors are mounted to that it will also have to go through. So it's not likely that you're going to have a problem. I've been using this keyboard for about a year, and I eat on my keyboard, and I did kind of blow this out so you don't have to see some of the nastiness in there, but it's not that big of a deal, and it's not going to cause any problems, because even if there were some dust in there, even a lot of dust or even sand or whatever got stuck in there, it's not going to be that big of a deal, simply because it's not like it's a pinpoint laser light that if it gets blocked just a little bit, all hell breaks loose and doesn't work anymore. Because all we're worried about is the intensity of light that's reflected back off the switch. And so even if it's a little fuzzy light or something like that it's going through that fuzzy light, some light's going to pass through it and some light's going to pass back, and it's going to make it brighter the closer that switch gets to the sensor. So it doesn't matter if a piece of dust gets in there or if tons of dust gets in there. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't cause a problem. So that's unfounded. The other thing, and this is something to be concerned about. So because we're using infrared light, there is a sense that other incandescent light that is out there can cause an interaction with the infrared light sensor, because even like the sun has infrared light that's coming out of it. So if the sun were to light up this switch, it would melt, but it would also cause some sensitivity to happen here. So I have a studio light here that has the ability to not only has visible light, but also infrared light. So you can see as I am putting my light here, you'll notice the little utility on here that senses where the keys are active or not. It is causing some movement, a significant movement, based off of the light kind of rotating around here. So that's a problem. But the nice thing is, if I turn that off for a second, and I throw these keycaps back on, switch it back to Aimpad mode. So you can see I'm pushing on the keys, they're active. If I turn this light back on, there's nothing getting through because those keycaps block all of that light. The keycaps are thick plastic that no infrared light, even the sun, cannot penetrate through that plastic. So there is no problem, even though you can see it's active, but not getting any light through there at all. So even that is not a problem. So the last thing I wanted to highlight was people were saying, all right, well, I game on Linux. I guess I'm not going to be able to use your keyboard because I game on Linux. Guess what? It works in Linux. I'm running my Linux desktop right now, and I am planning on showing you a game called Grow Home that is running in Linux, and I'll show you that. I'll launch the game here, cut to it since you don't want to be sitting through waiting for the whole menu to go there, and I'll move the camera over to the side, but we'll be gaming in Linux. Alright, so here we have Grow Home. It's a game developed by Ubisoft Reflections, and it is using the Unity game engine. So you'll notice in this game, it has a phenomenal analog control. So if I push in the key just a small amount, you'll see he's actually he like leans in a little bit before he even moves. It's like really good. And if I push it in a little bit more, he'll be walking slow, and I'll push a little bit more, and he goes faster, and even a little bit more, he goes faster, and a little bit more, he goes faster, and more and more and more. And so the animations themselves are based off of, I think they're procedurally generated as well. So there's some really kind of funky things that will happen. You can see as he moves, he'll like step over himself and all sorts of random stuff, but it's done extremely well. And the first thing it wants me to do is pick up some of these crystals. So I'll pick up those so I can stop getting that annoying beeping sound going. It wants me to jump. I can press the space bar, or on an Xbox controller to be the A button. But this game has really awesome controls for analog movement. And I can move independently with the mouse and move the game control or the game guy at the same time. Full analog movement, directions, speed, everything based off of how much I'm pushing down those keys. So this game also is probably one of the best rock climbing simulators I've ever played, because you have using the left and right mouse button, you can do the Macarena by controlling your hands there when you push down the left and right mouse button. So the way that the mechanics work in this game when you're climbing around is you push the left button and the left hand kind of sticks to that wall, and then the right hand sticks to the wall, and you release and go back and forth. Now the cool thing with analog control is that I can move myself off and position myself exactly where I want to be on that wall, and then left click or right click and then left click, and then move myself where I want over there and up there and over there and say over there and up there and there, and yes, I am up there. Now so if I switch back to this keyboard mode, I have no ability to slowly move, right? So I have to kind of temper my ability to position myself. And then when I'm on the wall, I can either go all the way to the right or all the way up or all the way to the 45 degree, and I have no other control other than kind of tapping it to where I want to position myself. Not a natural way to play this game, and really does not play as well using a keyboard. I almost fell off. So normal keyboard mode, yes, you can play, but just like I explained in that drill example, you have to basically time your movements because you're going to be flinging yourself just like you'd be spinning the drill as fast as possible. So I'm going to switch myself back to Aimpad mode. And also, I wanted to mention up in the top right corner of the screen, you'll see how I'm moving the analog controls at the same time. So I wanted to give you kind of a sense of what's happening from the hardware perspective. But it's extremely smooth, and I love this game for that reason. All right, so here's a nice little cinematic. I think the concept of the game is that you're basically trying to get that star plant there to grow all the way up. And you do that by first having to climb over there. And I will grab this plant, or not, just kidding. Maybe, I thought you grabbed it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And so now I have like a little plant that I can stop myself from falling too fast. And yeah, oh well, I fell anyways. Doesn't matter. Okay, so let me get over to that big old star plant. So there's some nice little things. So normally when you're playing a game like this and you want to aim where you're going to be moving, you would do that by pointing yourself like at that the lamb of sorts and just push the W key, and then that's how you would control which direction you're going to be moving. That's pretty standard and what most people are probably used to, but I can actually look at whatever I want to look at and still keep myself running in the same direction, right? So I could be chasing that guy and look over here at the same time and still be moving in that direction. And you can't really easily do that with keyboard mode if I switch back. And I am now trying to maintain a constant trajectory and can't do it so well because I'm either going 45 or 90 degree angles back and forth. Can't smoothly change my direction like that. Anyways, all right, let me get back on that track of what I was supposed to be doing. All right, so this is the star plant that I want to grow. In order to grow it, you actually have to connect it to these like plants over here. So I'm going to deploy my small... All right, sweet. Now, this plant, I have to connect it over to this green thing over there. And I'll do that using analog controls to point it at there. It wasn't a very good example because it's such a short one. But you actually have analog movement for aiming that plant at that growth pod or whatever it is that these are called. And you don't have that when you use WASD. So I'll try and show an example of what it looks like using WASD and then show you what it looks like using Aimpad keys. Somewhere. Maybe I could... Oh, there it is. Alright, here's analog controls, except they're backwards. There we go. Alright, so the plant's growing bigger. And these leaves over here, you can actually jump off of them. Kind of cool. Oh, oh. And then you can use these to like help teleport yourself if you happen to fall, which I don't plan to fall, but we will see. Come on. Alright. And I'm gonna grab this flower and recharge my ability to fall again. Alrighty, so let's see if I can find this other plant. There's one. I'm gonna do this one woohoo, using WASD normal keys. So let me switch back to keyboard mode here. Oh, okay. So I can still point it, but I have to time the movements. Oh, come on. Yeah. Almost there you go. Yeah. So I can still play that way. I would not recommend it though if you had analog movement, which I will switch back because you have the much smoother ability to move it, and I'll demonstrate that with this other plant. I don't know if this one can reach it, so I'm going to go over here. Man, I love how smooth it is. Alright, we're going to go sneaky like. Gonna grow it. And whoa, easy. Alright, so small movements. There we go. Alright, 4 out of 4 plants have caused the plant to grow through this marvelous fierce growth, and I'm now able to go to the next level. So I think that is a good place to stop. I hope you enjoyed and appreciate the ability that I have to be able to move my character in small, subtle adjustment ways and climb exactly the way I want to and walk along at the same angle while still moving the camera. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Alright, so there you go. We have shown Go Home played natively in Linux with our Aimpad Analog Keyboard with no problems. I forgot to mention that it is also possible to play Windows games in Linux using the Aimpad Analog Keyboard, streaming it over the network to a Windows machine. If you're streaming over the network, that you can play your entire Steam library in Linux using the Aimpad keyboard as well. So that's pretty nice. We have some pretty cool things going on. A new prototype is in the works. It will probably be another month or so before it will be finished, but it's going to be pretty impressive. I'm excited to show it off as soon as I get it back. But until then, thanks for watching, and have a good one.